My name is Michael Vazquez. I'm a teaching associate professor of philosophy at UNC Chapel Hill, and I'm also the associate director for the Parr Center for Ethics at UNC. And my research area focus with the Center for Practical Ethics at the University of Mississippi is K-12 ethics curriculum and also teacher professional development. So just concretely that I'm closely involved with the center's Connections program that I could say a little bit more about, which is kind of the educational arm of the center's Department of Justice Stop School Violence project. So I help write and design curriculum, especially kind of teacher-facing materials for the project. And along that, I, in my own work, and so in partnership also with the center, I study what pre-college philosophy and ethics can do for students, especially in terms of cultivating valuable intellectual and civic traits like humility and civility and things like that. Yeah, so I'll start with the second part of that. I mean, I think what's especially attractive about the center's approach in general, the Center for Practical Ethics, is that they're very ethics forward. And what I mean by that is they take seriously the idea that ethics is in everything. It says it in very big letters on their website. Ethics is in everything. It's in every decision, every action, every policy. And so naturally then what we need to do is take ethics everywhere in the community. Ethics needs to have a place in every boardroom, in every school, in the formation and development of teachers and educators and professionals, you name it. And I think connected to that is the idea that by reflecting on ethical questions and our values, which people have been doing for as long as humanity, it's as old as humankind, but by thinking very carefully and constructively and charitably about these questions alongside other people, so there's an important social component here, we can cultivate civility in our public discourse. We can help solve real world social problems. So I think Connections is a good example of that kind of approach. I mean, if you think about the fact that rural schools in Mississippi are dealing with persistent and really familiar kinds of problems like absenteeism, bullying, violence, resource constraints, and they're having to make tough decisions within those constraints. And there's a federal program that exists to address those problems in schools across the country. And the approach that Connections takes through the center is to focus on what ethics can do to address these real world problems. So the idea that if we equip educators, especially educators who are in the classroom, and then students with civic and interpersonal skills to address these problems, then they're going to be able to handle and de-escalate disagreement. They're going to be able to address kind of the root causes of some of the issues. And so I think that's just a concrete example of what I find valuable about the approach. And, part of what you do when you broker these conversations and you get people thinking about ethics is you help them think about their values. So they're better at articulating and discerning what's valuable to them. But then you also help them see that, well, perfectly reasonable people can have different values or come to very different conclusions about ethical and policy questions. And so they're learning at the same time how to navigate disagreement and maybe even to find points of common ground and commonality and to appreciate the fact that people will come to a wide range of conclusions. And I think finally, I guess the thing I'll mention here is the approach is importantly very relational. So I mentioned community early on, and I think the idea is, hence the name Connections, that if you build networks of connections, you sort of build a sense of belonging, a sense of connection between peers, between students and their teachers, within their communities, that you are building a kind of climate, you're kind of building the conditions that are necessary to then have hard conversations, for example, or to develop some of the traits that I was mentioning earlier. Because in many ways, those conditions like belonging and a feeling of connection are like preconditions on being able to deliberate together meaningfully about questions that affect everybody. Yeah, so there are many reasons why I decided to get involved. One is just that I had the good fortune of collaborating with and learning from the center's leadership. So Deborah Maurer in particular, for example, has for many years been a leader in, I would say, the work of public philosophy, and in particular bringing ethics out into the community, and also college level ethics programming. So bringing, ethics and ethical dialogue and ethical deliberation to college students. So, I've, as somebody who's closely involved with running the National High School Ethics Bowl, I had many opportunities to interact with and collaborate with Deborah and her team. So there's kind of a history of collaboration, and part of that is that I think we share so many of the values I was talking about earlier. The idea that ethics isn't everything, ethics is everywhere, and we need these kind of vital civic and interpersonal and intellectual habits in order to navigate real problems. But another thought there is that Deborah and her team at the center are interested in asking what works and what doesn't work well. And by that, I mean they're interested in assessment, in trying our best sort of to empirically understand whether an ethics program can have the beneficial outcomes that we like to think it does. And so I think this is a really important way of being open-minded about the work that we're doing. I'm a philosopher. Many of the folks involved with the center are, trained in philosophy or philosophers. But it's an open question whether, an ethics program for high school students or middle school students or educators has this or that effect. Does it help them become more intellectually humble? Does it help them engage with civility when they disagree with others? And so I think when you couple some of the priorities and values that we share with an interest in figuring out, well, what works? I think that's one of the things I'm especially drawn to with the center. We have this, I think, shared provisional mindset. This is what we think works. This is our best hypothesis. This is our best, prediction. And let's see if it works. And I think that's, again, one of the reasons I was just drawn to being affiliated as a research fellow.